Welcome back. So in our Selenium with Java series, today we are going to see how we can pass the parameter values into the code or into our framework. So what I mean is that, so think about it, there are a couple of parameters that we need for an instance. Let's say that you want to send the URL or the environment, like are you really want to execute your code or the test cases in QA staging or in production environment. So those details you want to send, or let's say that what kind of browser that you want to execute it, or basic information like username, password and all those things. So in normal ways what we do, so we normally take this by taking from a variable. We just hard code the details, like let's say that we want to execute in Chrome browser or we want to execute in Firefox, or this has to be the username, password or the URL. Everything we hard code in our project. Now the problem with this is that, so whenever you want to change it something, you have to go back to your code and then change it. Now it's very difficult to change it. Let's say that you have nearly 3 to 4 test cases that is dealing with your username and password. So you have to go back to the each of your test case and change those things. What if we can keep that into a different file? Because normally if you ask to someone how do we avoid this one, they might say you that okay, you can have an external file, let's say that config.properties, which is very much popular to provide the test data, the basic test data to your test cases. Yes, that's absolutely fine. So you can use the properties file and you can get the data from there. But again, you need to have the dependency, right, on an external file, because at any time you want to change the details, you have to come back to your code or you have to come back to your project to change those things, be it in your test cases or that the properties file. And the main problem here lies is that when you want to execute that into your CI/CD pipeline, let's say that you want to run that in your Jenkins or in Azure DevOps, then for an instance, let's think about this. You want to execute in Firefox browser. What you have to do, you have to pull the latest code, change that into the Firefox, the browser variable, and then you have to push back to your repo so that your Jenkins can pick up the latest code and execute that under your Firefox browser. So there is a dependency, right? So why can't we avoid that? So it means that we will be providing certain values from outside of your project, and then it will pick up the values and you have to write the code in such a way that it should accept the values, and based on that values it should configure your test cases so that it can execute accordingly. So what I mean here is that as we are using Maven project, right, and we are using the Maven project and Testng. So Maven has some option actually where you can execute your test cases from the command line. Okay, and command lines are very much popular if you are executing that in your CI/CD pipeline, because you cannot just go to an editor and run it, right? There is no dependency of the editor when you are running it from Azure DevOps or in Jenkins. So while executing your test cases in the command line, you can even pass certain values or variable values to your test case, so that based on that, on the runtime, it will take the new values that the user is providing from the command line and your test cases will be executed accordingly. Now this is all about theory part, right? Now let's try to implement this and see what benefit we are getting from this. Okay, so for this what I'm going to do, so under this package, I will be creating a new Java class, and let's say that I will be telling as parameters, and for this I will say Maven parameters. Okay. Now let's quickly add the basic Selenium to kind of launch a particular browser. Okay. Okay, so as you can see here, this particular sample code will execute strictly on the Firefox browser only, because we have kept here driver equal to new Firefox driver. Now let's say that we want to execute that in Chrome driver. So or into the Chrome browser. So what we need to do, we need to write the set of code for the Chrome browser as well, right? So here what I'm going to do, I will be writing like this, and this is for your Chrome browser. Okay, so here what I can do in a simple way, that I will be writing here Chrome. Okay, so and here I'll write one if condition here, and I will say if browser dot, so here let me keep this as browser. So I will say browser dot contains, if it is your Chrome browser, then what you need to do, you need to launch the Chrome browser, right? So I will be setting up here, and I will say else if browser dot contains, and let's say that Firefox. Okay, in that case you execute the Firefox configuration, or you set the Firefox configuration. Now after that you just need to set this one here. Okay, so I'll just write a simple condition here, if driver is not equal to null, then you do all these things. Okay, and here let me add equal to null. So now in this case, because Chrome browser is satisfying the condition, so that's why here it is coming. Or if it is, let's say that if I want to say Firefox, then this particular step will be executing. Now let's say that the same thing we have in couple of different test cases also, we have mentioned the same thing. So which is very difficult, right? You have to come back to this particular code base and then change what browser you need. So some, like as we were discussing at the beginning of this session, we were saying that why not we can have an external file here like a .properties file, and then we can specify the browser, and instead of here hard coding, I can read that properties file and get at the runtime whether it is Chrome or Firefox. Like if you want to see how we can get the or read the properties file, you can just go to this actually. So here you can see we have a file called as properties config.properties file, and this will hold actually your details like this. Key value pair you can give, like in this case browser equal to Chrome or Firefox, you can keep it, and you can use this particular methodology to get the details. Like if you say prop dot, if you come back here, you can see, so you want to get the browser, right? So what you can do, so get value, that is actually this particular method, and you provide the key. Key means if you are giving browser, it will return you the Chrome actually. So here you can see it is returning the Chrome. So here you can write that logic. Now again the same thing, right? If you're executing in Jenkins, then you need to have the dependency. You have to deal with the code itself, even though you are mentioning that as an external file in your project. Now I want to avoid that actually, so I don't prefer to have my properties file to sit inside my project actually. So how do we do that? So one solution, as I told, that we can send this browser value from an Maven parameters or from the command line itself. Now for this I will be doing a bit of something here, so just watch it, actually watch what I'm doing here. So what I'm going to do, instead of this string browser, I will be writing a simple single line of code which does the job actually for me. So here what I will do, system dot, I will say get property. Now here what I'm going to do, I'll create a variable name, and then here I will be specifying some value. That's it actually. So instead of this string browser equal to Chrome, what I'm doing, I'm adding this particular method, system.getProperty. Now what is this get property? From where it will get the value? So here the browser is the property variable, and this is the property value. Now you might say, okay, you hard coded here, right? So then how it is getting the data from the command line? So the thing is that here, this Chrome I'm setting as default. It means that if I'm not sending the browser value from the command line, then you take that as Chrome as a default value, because we have to provide some value, right? Then only my code will be working. So if the user is not providing any value from the command line, you take this as a default value. As simple as that. Now the question comes, how do we pass the parameter value from the command line. For this, actually I'm not going to take this as your main method. I will be taking this as a Testng. Now here let me just do a bit of change here. So I will say test parameter or command parameter, whatever it is there, and I'm removing this parameter inside this. Okay, that's it. Now here I will be executing this particular code actually from the command line. We have already seen how we can execute one particular the test method from the command line. Let me again repeat that. So you go to the terminal. You can go even to your command prompt or your Mac terminal. Even IntelliJ has its own inbuilt terminal, so you can even use that. So you say Maven test. So this is the way we need to execute the test cases, right? Maven Testng test methods. Now if I execute this, what will happen? All the test methods that are there in my particular project, everything will be executing, which I don't want at this moment, because I might have 20 to 30 test methods are there. I want to just execute this particular method. So what I'm going to do here, there is a way -d test and equal to, here I need to give the exact path of this one. This is not this one. So this is my package. Okay, so package dot, I will be giving Maven parameters. This is my class name. Now under this class, whatever test methods are there, that will be executing. As I have only one method, I am not giving any specific test method. This is the way you can run a specific test case or test method from the Maven command line. Now that's kind of the prerequisite. Now the question comes, how do we pass the parameter this browser? See, this -d test is coming from the Testng itself, so we don't need to worry about that. But what about this browser? This is my own variable, right? User defined variable. No worries. What Maven is saying, you have to do like this. So -d browser. So now what you would do this, first this will check it if it is the Maven Testng's own variable or not. Like this test, there are a couple of predefined variables are there which we cannot use it for our own purpose. Like we have made excluded groups, group. So if you have watched my Testng grouping, there I have mentioned these things. So because this is my own defined variable, so I can use -d browser equal to, now here I can specify whatever the variable that or the value that I want to pass it. One more thing to note is that, as I told, the Maven Testng, these are the prerequisites. Along with that, you have to have your Surefire plugin. So if you go to the pom.xml, you will see I have this Maven Surefire plugin installed here. This plugin has to be there in your pom.xml. Then only you can, these things will be working, because Surefire plugin is the one which is helping you to pass the parameter from the command line. As simple as that. Okay. Now let's go to this Maven parameter.java file. Okay. I have everything set it. Now let's do one thing actually. I'm not going to give anything here. It's a simple I'm running here. Now, as I'm not passing any value to this browser, what it is going to do, it's taking the Chrome browser as expected, because that's the default, right? Now, let me change a bit, and at this time, I'm going to assign this one into the Firefox. Okay, now let's see what happens. Now you see, the Firefox browser is now launching. So now as you can see, now we have changed this browser value without touching even the code base. Okay, from an external source I'm doing that. So you can use the your Jenkins parameterization, where you can send at the runtime. Let's say your manager or lead is saying that we want to execute the test cases in Chrome browser. No worries, because it is default, you don't want to send anything. Just execute Maven test, dtest, or whatever it is there. Now if your manager is saying that okay, execute this in Safari browser, no worries. These things, just once you need to write the if else condition in your base test or whatever the configuration you have, and after that just you need to send the browser parameter from your Jenkins parameterization, this value as Safari. That's it actually. You don't need to again pull your code, change something, again push back to your repository and then run that. Fine. Now this is only one variable, right? What about, because I was talking, right, you can send the environment like it is QA, staging, or your production, or is it you want to send the username and password and everything, and then you might need those variables in multiple different test cases, right? For demo I have only assigned one test case, but you might be having 50 to 60 different test cases, right? Is it a good practice to have this kind of hard coding inside your test case? Not really. We want to improvise this. So what I'm going to do, I will be commenting this one, and here what I will do, I will create one new file, and this is basically the real time we do in our framework. So I will be creating another Java class. Now in this I will be saying that, let's say config.java. I'm just saying, you can give any name actually. Here I will say app-config, let's say that. So app-config is your file. Now inside this I will be writing this statement here. So I will be taking this one to this app.config, and this particular class will be holding only the variables. There is nothing else will be there. No methods, no implementation, nothing. Simple this one. Let's see what is this error it is showing. Okay, so the error is that here no no browser is declared here. So what you can do here, if you need that one, so you can just say browser equal to, now in this case you just need to do this one actually, dot browser. That's it. Now you can see even the dependency for this particular test method is now not required. So if you need this browser variable, for an instance, if you need this browser variable in multiple test cases, okay, now what you need to do, you just need to declare this one, string browser equal to app-config.browser, or else here directly I can take app-config.browser.contains. I can do in any ways, but the only thing is that all of your variables, whatever, or the parameters that you need, you can just specify here. For an instance, let's say that I want to get the environment here. So you can just say like this, env, and you do like this, and you come back here and you mention it as env, and you give the default value. Let's say I want to always execute in QA environment if we are not sending any of the value from from your parameters or command line. So here it should be string. That's it. And then now think about this, you want to send even the URL, let's say that. So you can just mention like this, and then string, and then you can say URL. Let's say that I want to send the base URL, like if I am testing facebook.com, let's say. So what I can do here, system dot, and I can say get property, and I will say here URL, and I will be taking this one as facebook.com. okay, now depending on the environment that I'm sending from the parameter, I can add it. If the environment is QA, if I'm sending from the command line, then maybe I can play with here. So for an instance, let's say that string URL, I can build here. Let's see this one. So app.config, okay, dot, I will say environment, and I will be appending this one. Let's see how this works. So app-config dot, I will say, what is that? This is environment and URL, right? So I will be doing like this. Now at this moment I'm not going to do anything. I will be just printing this URL. Okay, now think about this. So now go to the terminal, and now in this case, because here I was sending the browser, right, even multiple variables I can send it from here. For an instance, environment equal to, let's say I don't want to make the environment as QA, I want to make it as staging or stage, we call it as a stage. Let's say I want to execute my test cases into the stage environment of the Facebook, which is above level of your QA environment. Now in this case, if I'm going to execute this one, let's see what happens. Now let's see the URL that I wanted to print actually here. Yeah, you can see here. So stage, actually basically it is stagefacebook.com, but it has to be stage.facebook.com. So here I can just append one dot here, and then like this. Okay, so these are some internal applications. So when you see facebook.com, right, that is your production environment, means which is publicly available to us. But the the testers or the automation engineers in Facebook, they might not be executing the test cases directly on facebook.com. They might be executing on qa.facebook.com or stage.facebook.com, because couple of features they will be working ahead of what you are getting. They will be testing it. If it is working fine, then from that QA environment it will go to the stage. From stage again they will execute the test cases. Once it is passed, they will take it to the final environment, that is your production facebook.com. So like that they do that. So depending on your environment, you have to build the URL at the runtime, and you can send the variable whatever you want from this particular config. So there is a dependency actually. So you send the value from here, Maven test. You can't just take any variable. You have to match the variables whatever you're writing here and here. Upon this matching, the framework will be taking the values from your command line. Okay, so that's kind of this stuff which will be helping if you're running this from an CI/CD pipeline or on the runtime, where you don't want the dependency to update the values into your actual code actually there. So hope this particular session is helpful. We will see the real-time implementation of this while we will be building the actual framework. We will be using this, and I always suggest to the people to use this kind of stuff instead of taking the properties file. Okay, so in the properties file, whatever you have seen, right, all these things, why not we can write all these things into this app.config, so that you don't need to even have this dependency of writing all this logic to get the values from an properties file, because this is Java's own concept, right? You can see I'm not writing any specific logic here. I'm just getting the static static variable from a class actually. That's it. app.config, appconfig.browser, appconfig.environment, appconfig.url. And this is a common file which can be accessible throughout your page objects, your test cases, your base file, wherever you need, you can use it. Okay, so that's the benefit of taking it from a config file, and also you can change the values from a parameter, Maven parameter. Make sure one thing, you should be using Maven, pom.xml and Testng and Surefire plugin into the pom.xml. So hope this session is helpful. Do subscribe to this YouTube channel and stay tuned to our upcoming interesting topics on this Selenium and other topics or other tools. Thank you for watching.